That's real far behind. Wow. Okay. Let's test this sucker out. Make sure everything doesn't sound like garbage. Jesus. It's never easy. Where did this even come from? Uh, okay, I think we're fine with that. I need to stop looking at this. It's throwing me off.
And so, therefore, anybody who Twitter bans should be banned. And then he was unwilling to say that it's specific to anything Destiny has ever said or done. There's really not much to say about that other than it doesn't make any sense. I told Lauren Southern that I have never.
Wait, I think that makes sense.
Well, he's just. But then why are you talking about Destiny specifically if your only statement is?
Hello. God, that is so annoying, dude. So much noise. See, the thing about sand heaps is that you start with a million grains, take one away, and then keep going until you have one grain. See, the thing about sand heaps is that you start with a million grains, take one away, then keep going until you have one grain. Dude, this computer is killing me how loud it is. Whatever. Fuck. is so loud. Oh. Okay, I think that did it. Sand heaps, sand heaps, sand heaps. Sand heaps. Sand heaps, sand heaps. Sand heaps, brew. Okay, now that the sound's finally figured out, that was exciting. Okay, let's get down to it. I meant to do this last time, and then Minor Prophet hit me up. And I couldn't say no. So, let's get back to it, because I still think about this. Eventually, I'll want to do a deeper dive, introspective.
Hey, do you ever walk?
I don't even think it's a data-driven answer. I honestly think it's just going to be an argumentative philosophical answer. Okay. Start recording. Okay, so not too long ago, Mr. President Sunday, not Mr. President, formal, got a position, went on Destiny's stream and basically just called him a loser for talking to people like Lauren Southern, Nick Fuentes in a friendly way without, all the time challenging their ideas. He really didn't like that. So, I would like to review that because I think he makes a great job in this first video here, where he's responding to Rose Wrist, where Rose Wrist is reacting to President Sunday and Destiny's chat. Rose Wrist blows him up, obviously. I honestly don't blame Rose Wrist for making that conclusion. But I think a lot of the conclusions President Sunday makes are minimizing. Or maybe just wrong. But I think I'm going to comment as we go through this. And I'll kind of make a claim and show why I think President Sunday is so wrong in this. Because you'll see he didn't want to have a debate. He wanted to make his claim, be very smart about it, strategically set Destiny up to basically agree to the premise and then swap some of the parameters in that premise, even though the conclusion and the hypothetical still holds to be consistent, but some of the parameters are different. And so Destiny, classic little bait and switch. So Destiny would agree to the prior hypothetical previous premise, but then had some thoughts after some of the parameters were changed. Okay, so let's start this.
Destiny, a debate that only lasted 8 minutes, actually.
The fall.
On the very short debate between President Sunday and Destiny, a debate that only lasted 8 minutes, actually.
The following is a response to a quite frankly extremely stupid review of my recent brief interaction with
He's always so salty. I love it.
Destiny by Rose Wrist, in which the latter calls me a coward and a hypocrite.
So I think there are two possibilities for why he left here. Possibility number one is he left because he was incapable or afraid to engage further in the conversation and essentially used that as an excuse to get out. Or number two, he agreed with Destiny, realized that his engagement was helping Destiny grow, and therefore went out for more of like a principled reason.
And so I think what Rose Wrist just said, I think almost everyone, I think every layman watching would think that, especially if you're watching it from Destiny's perspective, as we'll see.
I'm saying principle
Although I have to give it to President Sunday. He does an excellent job in this video of making his case and why he was justified in acting the way.
for some of the things we're going to talk about later. And the funny thing is, honestly, I don't know which is worse. You know, reason one is it's fairly obvious to understand why that's like negative, right? And why that one is pretty bad. So if the reason why he left is just because he wasn't able to engage anymore, that would just demonstrate that he hadn't thought through his arguments before expressing them publicly, and that he crumbled at the slightest bit of pushback to his beliefs, that he's a bit of a spineless coward who leaves the conversation when it gets off script, and that he's kind of reinforced the stereotype that people like him are incapable of engaging in critical engagement with people live, and hides behind one-sided reviews where you can carefully control what gets discussed. So it's fairly obvious why that's a bad reason. But let's take the more charitable interpretation, okay? He left because of, because he was principled, essentially. He realized that, oh, what I'm doing right now is actually doing the thing I'm accusing Destiny of doing, so I'm going to stop doing this. Because now I know that's bad, and I'm a principled person, so I'm not going to do it anymore. So once again, everything I'm about to say now is assuming that Sunday buys Destiny's argument, that Sunday's engagement with Destiny is helping Destiny grow, and that's why he left. This also demonstrates to some extent that he hadn't thought through his belief, and therefore acted in incongruence with this belief by coming on to Destiny's stream at all, essentially. Because this is like a fairly easy thing to think about. You don't need to be like a philosophy lord if Destiny can figure this out. And Destiny's a smart guy, but if Destiny can figure it out in like just a few minutes of listening to you present your argument, you probably should have thought about that enough to be able to reach that conclusion. If that's something you feel comfortable tweeting about and even going into a debate with, once again, we still have that issue with not really thinking things through. More pertinently, probably, is the fact that this means that President Sunday is a massive hypocrite.
Rose's reasons for calling me such are interesting primarily.
All right, and so now President Sunday is going to kind of knock down everything Rose Wrist said, but again, keep in mind, even though President Sunday is very, very convincing in this video, we'll see why it falls flat later.
If one is paying attention, which Rose obviously was not, because, as we shall shortly see, it highlights his own hypocrisy in a rather spectacular way. The accusation of cowardice doesn't merit a response besides noting the obvious. First, that if indeed I was so afraid of speaking to Destiny that this would motivate me to leave the call early, I would have simply refused the invitation altogether. This conversation was made on the basis of a tweet that offended Destiny and which was only tangentially about him. There was no pressing need for me to accept.
This tweet from President Sunday: if we actually held political content creators to account for their little acts of treachery to their avowed causes, we wouldn't have Destiny more or less openly betraying everything he ever claimed to stand for out of greed and hatred for other people doing his same bit.
Second, I did not accept the invitation from Destiny for the pleasure of his company. I had a limited task in that discussion which, once accomplished, which it was, I was not going to needlessly imperil by gambling for no reason that a seasoned professional debater was not going to be able to eventually obfuscate the point if I fed him a continuous line of rope over the course of a series of...
So I think that's a really important thing to remember. Because President Sunday's claim here is that he left the debate with Destiny, the discussion with Destiny, whatever you want to call it, honestly, it doesn't really matter. Because President Sunday said it's not really a debate because he set up his premises. There was really no argument put forward because Destiny agreed. So if there's no disagreement, there's no argument. And then once Destiny started to push back, President Sunday left. So you kind of have to think, why would you... I think you have to defend it in front of Destiny, because I think, and again, we'll see this. If you bring someone to someone, and even if you did a good job of setting up premises and you agreed, you did a little bait and switch, with President Sunday did, and he did a really good job of it, at the end of the day, you kind of have to defend that idea. Like, you can do a lot of good. You can set up, really flawless premises. That doesn't mean the conclusion is naturally going to follow, or everyone's going to agree with that conclusion. You have to defend that conclusion.
Superfluous endurance laps because I am not a moron. And finally, if I were to be motivated by fear to leave the call, it certainly wouldn't be after my script had run out. The purpose of a script is that it keeps you to a structured plan. That plan had already succeeded. The point I had decided was my goal to make was made. It stood unaddressed, and all Destiny could do was attempt to reframe the conversation as if I was making a different case than that which I had been making the entire time. I wished him a good night and ended the call. As is my goddamn right. We hadn't scheduled a debate. There was no agreed upon scope or duration for the discussion, or even an agreed upon topic. In short, I didn't leave the conversation early to begin with because there was no early. I left precisely when my purposes for the conversation were satisfied, i.e., right on time. Once again, this conversation concerned a tweet. Destiny had quote tweeted my remark on Twitter, inviting me on to chat about it as a power play, and I obliged since it implicated him and thus it seemed appropriate to do so. Once I was satisfied I had made my case and detected that Destiny was going to try to obfuscate the point.
And again, with the original tweet, President Sunday is talking about holding Destiny account for his original tweet, or in President Sunday's original tweet, he's talking about holding content creators to account for violations they've made to their openly held position. So, for example, Destiny's very SOCDEM or liberal, whatever you want to call it, and say Destiny said something, very conservative. He believes that we should hold Destiny to account for that. But I think to do that, you have to argue with them. Otherwise, you're not really holding them to account because they'll always be able to weasel around it. You have to defend the accusation to hold them to account.
Point, I mockingly accepted the terms of his red herring and excused myself on their basis. I find the fact that I have to spell this out a little bit disturbing given that among many other things, both Rose Wrist and Destiny, for all their other flaws, are generally described as intelligent. Now, moving on to the charge of hypocrisy, this is where things get interesting. Destiny's red herring is of particular concern here, as it is the one Rose relies upon to characterize me as hypocritically running afoul of my own argument, quote-unquote, which he characterizes thusly.
President Sunday's argument is essentially that, hey, when Destiny platforms people like Lauren Sutton and Nick Fuentes, he is giving them a platform, he is giving them viewership, he is essentially giving them just more resources, right? They're giving them content, whatever debates that they then profit from, and they get resources, and then they use these resources towards hurting minority groups. And because President Sunday believes that Destiny's entire thing is built upon progressive values and not hurting minorities, President Sunday perceives this as a betrayal of those values and therefore something worthy of critique. Destiny's argument in response to this was,
and I would agree with President Sunday. I think you should hold all hypocrisies to account, or all perceived hypocrisies to account. You either make the case that they're making the hypocrisy, make the argument for why they should change, or, it could even happen that your perceived hypocrisy is incorrect, and then maybe you'll change your position. I think that's a very healthy way for content creators online to act. I think that's a good way to do it, a little self-regulating market.
Is that's possible, but this is just difference in degrees of separation. So, for example, you, President Sunday, are guilty of the exact same thing. Because from you coming up here, even if you're a smaller creator, you're giving me content. You're making my stream more engaging. You're giving me higher viewership numbers than if I just sit here doing nothing.
There's just one problem. This isn't my argument. It's Rose's. The following is from a video published in July entitled Destiny Irresponsibly Platformed Lauren Southern in This Debate.
And yeah, the key issue is that was not what happened when they were playing League. Playing League, or playing video games in general with somebody, is more okay, you're there for the person, or you're doing this with this person, or you're playing the game with the person, more than you're there to confront the ideas. So there is sort of a more intrinsic passive acceptance of the ideas that are being laid out, if that's not the focal point of what's going on. So even in the Sargon debate, where things are pretty civil, they work through things, in a non-aggressive manner, the focus was still very much on the disagreement, and the whole framing of the debate was that, okay, there's a disagreement here that we're trying to work through. While in the other discussion, it was more like, okay, this can be interpreted as just two friends hanging out and, you know, having a bit of political conversation on the side. And that's negative because it's giving a platform and it's granting legitimacy to Lauren Southern in this instance, which I don't know if I need to remind you all of this, is probably one of the worst online political content creators when it came to radicalizing people to the far right.
So I actually disagree with that conclusion, and I'll talk about this later. But I think it's fine to be friends with people who you strongly disagree with. I think that's fine. And I think, honestly, like, if you wanted to be cynical about it, what's probably the best way to steal or convert an opponent content creator's audience? Probably by befriending them. Because if you're always hostile, always bad faith, always uncharitable, and just always, you know, in general, just aggressive towards that person, they're probably not going to want to be with you. Because a lot of people online, like, might not always have the strongest opinions on everything and might just want to work out, you know, something, and they don't want to feel like they're going to get dunked on viciously. So I think it can be really helpful, and I would hope most people, and I don't think Sventis thinks this, but I kind of think Lauren Southern, even though she's very populist brain, very conservative, kind of tradcon, like team sports politics kind of person, I think she does a good job of going to Destiny, and Destiny will going to Destiny and having an argument. And I think Destiny does a really good job of disputing a lot of her claims, and kind of showing that Lauren's conclusions are built on a house of cards. They're not well substantiated. And I think the reason Lauren's willing to do that is because Destiny will be friendly to her all the time. Where if, I would imagine if Lauren Southern were to talk to Vosh, I imagine Vosh would be looking to dunk on her very, very hard. He'd be looking to embarrass her. And you can do that once, and that'd be great. But you can only really do that once. Otherwise, people aren't going to want to talk to you. Or you're going to have a very unproductive conversation because people will be scared of getting dunked on or embarrassed. So they'll come in and they'll be looking to use all the debate tactics, obfuscate as much as they can, be very ambiguous, and just all around weaselly. So I think it can be very worthwhile to befriend people on the other side of the aisle.
And in case you had trouble following this, Rose Wrist helpfully clarifies in a pinned comment. Quote, "Hey everyone, so it seems some people are still unclear as to exactly what the criticism I am levying is, so I thought I'd clarify a bit. My criticism wasn't in regards to the fact that Destiny was playing video games when he was having the conversation. Both of the other examples I praised in the video included Destiny playing video games, the discussion with Lauren, and the debate with Sargon. Destiny is more than capable of having a debate while gaming. The distinction is that he was playing video games with Lauren Southern. The reason why I believe this distinction is meaningful is because I believe that it fundamentally alters the tone or the framing of the discussion. It carries with it a stronger implicit acceptance or legitimization of the ensuing discussion and viewpoints than if it had been purely a discussion. The framing, at least in the eyes of some portions of an audience, is no longer that these two individuals are on here to work out disagreements, but rather that they are playing games together and on the side having a bit of a chat about politics. I find this to be irresponsible as it puts Lauren as a person and her beliefs in a more casual light, I suppose. Now, I would like to add that the mode in which Destiny did hold the conversation is absolutely perfect for trying to change the opinions of an individual. The nature of the conversation lends itself towards charitability and a higher likelihood of potentially changing your mind. However, the fact that it didn't occur privately, but rather in front of thousands of people, is the issue. In regards to how well he pushed back, I think it was good. I would argue that it may be just so slightly below his average due to the relatively frequent game interjections / callouts, and some long moments of silence due to both focusing on the game, but all in all, it's not the degree of pushback that I had an issue with, but rather the nature of the exchange. I hope this cleared some stuff up, unquote. Indeed it did, Rose. Well said. To the point, however, not only was this not my argument, I was actually very deliberately not making any argument in my interaction with Destiny.
Right, and so this is the kind of bait and switch I was talking about. And I'm saying bait and switch as if like that's a That sounds like a slimy thing to do. It wasn't slimy. It was really smart of him to do it this way.
To explain what I mean, recall again that the impetus for my interaction with Destiny wasn't a specified disagreement about politics or ethics or anything of the sort. It was a tweet in which I characterized Destiny as an example of what people like Rose Wrist seem to become when they aren't held to account for irresponsible behavior, i.e., they become the kind of people who betray everything they once claimed to stand for out of greed and hatred. My task...
And that's obviously everything. Really everything. Everything he stands for, you think he betrayed? A little hyperbolic.
Therefore, in my interaction with Destiny, was only to establish the veracity of this characterization. This is simple enough to do in abstract, but I had a handicap in that Destiny could at any point characterize me as a bad faith actor or any number of other disreputable things and obstruct my ability to make my case, or terminate the call himself before I was able to do so, in effect using his disproportionate control of the arena to obstruct my argument. He has done so in the past.
So he's talking about ending the call, but President Sunday ended the call. I don't know. I don't think that really means anything. I think he's just talking about a tactic, not necessarily like that's a bad thing, or like that's a low character trait or something like that. I think he's just saying like, I need to accomplish my goal. He has these options open to him.
It's my turn.
If
now.
you've got to,
yeah, okay. Last question then. Last question.
No.
No, just
Also, this is probably the worst example. I think this is kind of a dishonest framing by President Sunday. So this video that President Sunday is using, it was after Destiny had watched Demon Mama and the Scrub King debate about it was like complimenting men. And Demon Mama was very intransigent to the idea as a whole. And this was the last thing Destiny was going to do, so he was going to end streaming anyways. So it was kind of like, the sooner I finish this, the sooner I'm done. And previously, Demon Mama and him had an argument. And I would say, I would hope, maybe I shouldn't say that. I think most people who aren't fans of Demon Mama can watch Demon Mama's stuff and understand, like, she can be a little bad faith, be very difficult in conversations, be long-winded. It could just be very frustrating to have a productive conversation with her, have a productive debate with her. Like, it always seems like she wants to derail, make accusations. Like, for example, she called the Scrub King an incel. Like, kind of just kept hammering that point, like, saying he's making incel points, which just didn't feel good. So what Destiny did here, and he was really rude about it, and it is what it is. I don't think Destiny definitely doesn't like Demon Mama, so I think he's very okay with being rude to her. So he was basically just trying to, as quickly as possible, try to negate all Demon Mama's debate tactics by being long-winded, trying to obfuscate, Gish Gallop, whatever, and just force home all his points as quickly as possible. Essentially, the points that the Scrub King was trying to make. So make all of the Scrub King's points for him, get the concessions, and then finish talking. And then he ended stream. That's the example President Sunday is using.
I'm serious. Last one, and then I'll answer three. I will answer three in a row of yours. I'm just for the last one.
No.
Do you acknowledge that
okay.
if you disempower half of society, do you acknowledge that in a way that's empowering the other half?
I guess it could.
Thank you.
Depends.
I'm
Because
so happy that you
wait,
walked back every single argument that you gave. You are a worthless
Literally
fuck
did
piece
not
of shit.
give a
Have a
fuck.
wonderful night. All right, done with that. Okay.
It was very amusing.
And remember, he ended stream like right after that. So I don't know.
But it now
Like, I feel like President Sunday is almost kind of alluding to that this is a regular debate tactic of Destiny's. And the only other, I guess I have seen him leave, like with BX Bullets that one time they were talking about the Alex Baldwin shooting. He left that one. But BX Bullet he kept trying to make the same point that they had already addressed like 10 times previously. I think he just left out of complete frustration. But again, like that, in the BX Bullet conversation, that was after I don't know how long that debate was, but it was at least like an hour. So they had been talking for a while. It wasn't like they got 10 minutes in, he got a quick dunk, and he got out of there.
Represented an exigency for which I had to prepare. My strategy, therefore, was to couch the premises I needed not to argue, but to demonstrate my case in examples that Destiny would be so reflexively hostile to that he would lower his guard and agree with my description of these premises, provided they showed the examples in a negative light and him in a sympathetic one. And it worked.
Wait, what
Yeah,
am I
that sounds good.
betraying out of greed?
Okay, well, let me be as fair to you as possible, so if you'll allow me, I'll sort of recapitulate what I understand your situation to be, and then you can let me know if I'm being fair.
Sure.
Okay, cool. So what I was talking about here is concerned with how you deal with other content creators. Surprise, surprise, there's going to be nothing new here. So let's take Demon Mama as an example of what I'm talking about. I like this one because it highlights the unfairness of the situation you're in.
So this is, President Sunday showed that clip of Destiny talking to Demon Mama earlier. Destiny doesn't like Demon Mama, so he's probably very likely to agree to something negative about Demon Mama. And I think it's very smart of President Sunday to use that as an example to set up this premises before switching out that premises for Lauren Southern and Nick Fuentes or whatever. Which is, and it essentially be the same exact argument, just different players involved.
So we know how Demon Mama got started as a very large online figure. Engagement with you of any kind is worth its weight in gold, yes? What this means is that if she can secure really any sort of engagement with you whatsoever, especially a hostile engagement, even if you successfully make her look like a fool, and I think there's definitely an audience that thinks that you have, and I've had moments, her visibility skyrockets. Doesn't matter how well it goes for her in the moment, just pure benefit.
Sure.
And because she knows that, just regularly being associated with you at all supplies her with visibility as well as therefore money. People like that will do and say anything to get a response from you. And no matter how abusive or dishonest she is because of your relative size, people will blame you for diverting your audience to terrorize her if you respond. Almost regardless of what you say. And it gets worse, actually, because almost any response you make has the perverse result of signal boosting her platform. So defending yourself only encourages her to repeat the process. Again, it's perverse, but you in effect helped make her channel viable just by defending herself. Just by being you, and by being decent enough to give her the light of day. For a moment, you helped her find money and recognition just for interacting with you. And then there's the snowball effect, where other people then seek out engagements with her to leech off of her increased visibility, further contributing to her growth, etc. Other examples abound. Keffels made disgusting false claims.
So I think it's kind of obvious that Destiny isn't paying the most attention here, but which, I mean, in the end, it's not a great look for Destiny, because it kind of made President Sunday's job a lot easier of laying out his premises, and Destiny just agreeing uncritically
about you, and was likewise rewarded for it. So it doesn't matter how nice or mean you are, just by engaging with these people, you help them grow. So I think I get your frustration here. Am I being fair to you so far?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I'd say so, yeah.
Demon Mama and Keffels both experienced substantial growth, both in visibility and funds, through the bare fact of interacting with Destiny at some point. Destiny agrees this is a fair characterization of his situation. Every element besides this was superfluous and deployed only to obfuscate the purpose of what I was doing so that his guard would be lowered so that he wouldn't obstruct the follow-up. Okay, cool. So honestly, Steven, I don't know how you explain this.
Wait.
I don't know how you explain how you can help someone increase her funds and visibility who, in your words, literally flew to fucking France to get into a boat to help drown refugees, as well as said to a trans person, "You will never be a woman," or give a lifeline to Nick Fuentes on YouTube after he'd been excised from it entirely, as well as an advert for his cozy platform he probably couldn't have dreamed of. I don't know how you can explain abetting people like this, and then say that you haven't completely betrayed the communities they continue to predate upon this day, that you built your platform advocating for. Which was to juxtapose this fact with specific, needless interactions of a very particular sort, specifically the sort Rose
And so that was the bait and switch. Well done by President Sunday.
characterizes in his pinned comment read above, with people who, in his own words,
Literally flew to fucking France to get into a boat to help drown refugees.
It's crucial here that I was explicitly concerned with particular kinds of interactions with particular actors who, in Destiny's and Rose's own avowed judgment, actively engage in political activism with the intent to harm minority groups. specifically trans people and refugees in the case of Lauren Southern, and, well, it's probably easier to list the people who aren't targeted by Fuentes. I specify these two, Lauren Southern and Nick Fuentes, for precisely the reason Rose Rist has in the past. I have no objection to Destiny debating with conservatives or even Nazis categorically, just as I never critique Vosh for doing so, or anyone else. This can indeed be important and positive, provided it is done carefully and for a purpose. The problem, as Rose Rist has adequately laid out for us, is that debate doesn't exhaust what Destiny does with Lauren Southern and Nick Fuentes. Destiny's channel now has a backlog of casual and friendly engagements with Lauren, despite her ongoing advocacy against immigrants and transphobia, giving her an opportunity to sidestep the social cost of well-known critiques of her vicious ideological positions and actions, to sell herself to his audience on the basis of her charisma. With respect to Nick Fuentes, Destiny has declared that he would begin operating on Nick Fuentes' own YouTube/Twitch alternative, Cozy, effectively advertising it to a massive audience who might otherwise have never even heard of it, directly increasing its viability as a result.
Big news about the Cozy platform. You probably have already seen it, but this is really exciting stuff, and I'm very proud to announce tonight that Stephen Bonnell, better known as Destiny, has officially joined Cozy.tv. And so we announced this last night. Huge! And I'm so excited because I don't use Twitch and I don't really use YouTube anymore because I'm banned from both of them. So I never get a chance to catch his content. But now, officially, you can find Stephen Bonnell at cozy.tv/destiny. And I'm told that he'll be doing his first stream this week. So,
And what is it? Cozy. Wait, this guy list. I think he's never streamed there. People are out of control.
welcome aboard, Stephen Bonnell. It's so great to have you. Welcome to Cozy.tv, and welcome to all of Destiny's.
Also, I think Destiny said he was gonna maybe use it to, because it's really hard. I think he said, so a lot of, like, Nick Fuentes was just saying, even though he, like, even in a much more conservative America, I think he would have been banned from Twitch and YouTube. That Destiny wanted to argue with more conservatives because it feels like on YouTube and Twitch, you know, it's a very left-leaning space, where, like, being the socialist is, like, that's, like, the center. Not really. But, you know, it's very typical to find a lot of socialists, which, you know, doesn't really represent the American landscape, political landscape. So he was hoping to go on there and argue with more conservative types. But, I mean, apparently he never did that.
Fans, and we're going to be good hosts. You know, we're going to try our best to welcome these guys in. I know that Steven is a little bit more extreme than us. That's why he's earned the moniker Stephen the Swastika Bonnell. You know, they don't call him Stephen the Swastika Bonnell for nothing. Anyway, so he's coming on the platform now. It's all jokes. He's a liberal. He's liberal, and that's great, and it's fine. And we look forward to radicalizing all of his supporters. I welcome them onto the platform, and really the goal of having him on the platform is that he will bring thousands and thousands of disaffected leftists to the site, and they will watch my show and other shows and be radicalized and turn into, hopefully, far-right extremists.
For anyone who's still confused, the point is not that any engagement, positive or negative, can be stretched by all kinds of actors to their benefit. That's obvious, of course they can. The point is that given in these specific cases, many of the engagements are of such a kind that the only sides that could benefit are the ones that are, in Destiny's own words, actively seeking to harm and deprive minorities, Why the fuck is Destiny entertaining them? Well, as it happens, we have his reply.
I mean, I guess the issue is that if I were to take everything that you said thus far as being true, which it is true, and this is a discussion I've had in my community a lot, where I'm basically left in a world where I can never engage with anybody that I have substantial disagreements with because I would signal boost them. I see that, like, I'm not invoking Vosh to shit talking about it, but like Vosh has like basically employed this strategy where he said that like I'm not going to engage with anybody that I disagree with that has a smaller platform than me. And I think that basically kills my entire business model.
His business model. What we all know already, he's doing it for money. And when I point out the obvious, he says this.
Just to be clear, when you say providing them with funds to hurt people, that's a very like direct, like I'm literally like sending money to Fuentes, or I'm saying like, guys, go check out Nick Fuentes here, or whatever. I think that that's significantly different than you shouldn't be allowed to engage with anybody because they're smaller than you and they might get more popular off of those engagements, right? Or interactions.
No, I think that's a knockdown argument against doing that in this case. You're talking about people whose careers are predating upon minority groups.
So then...
This is purely black and white.
Well, clearly it's not black and white. But like so then is your prescription then that if you're a large content creator, you should just never interact with somebody that you perceive to be as like hateful towards minority groups?
Yes. If you're doing so in a way that benefits them in their political activities, yes, absolutely. The Nick Fuentes example is illustrative. He's been excised off of YouTube. You functionally act as a lifeline. Okay,
well in that case, I guess I wouldn't have a problem necessarily. I mean, I would argue that this thought process is bad, but I guess more to the point, I don't think I have ever advocated that we should never interact with people we disagree with. I've kind of built my whole platform off of interacting with
the issue is not disagreement.
Well, real quick, the reason why I'm saying this is just because like I don't think you can call me hypocritical for doing this, because this has kind of been part and parcel of what I've done for really the past like 5 or 6 years, right?
Your justification for visiting, if I remember the context correctly, your justification for visiting the House of Ice Poseidon was that he wasn't someone like Lauren Southern, who, again, in your words, went to France to drown refugees.
Yeah, that was a while ago. I've changed in my political views in terms of like who I'm willing to engage with or not.
I see. So you're
but
now
also,
willing.
Well, but also
so just to be clear quickly, just so I understand you. The shift you've made is you're now comfortable materially helping, because that's what you're doing by regularly appearing to this person in a friendly. I mean, Rose Wrist made an excellent video on this. This is largely where I got. I understand what you're saying.
You have to have a few more steps of separation. Otherwise, you are materially helping these people as well.
Is that a fact?
Yes.
Oh, well then enjoy your video game, Stephen. Have a good night. A complete non sequitur.
Okay, that obviously wasn't a complete non sequitur. Because what he's saying is that him being, let's just see what his argument is here. And then
he had no retort against my actual point, which was really his point, that he engaged with these people despite having full knowledge of the consequences for other people, for money. That he was perfectly happy.
I just find that, I mean, I guess you could say that, and maybe Destiny is just a complete cynic, but I think it's pretty obvious that like Destiny's well known for his political advocacy. I don't know what President Sunday's advocacy is, but I mean, it's just hard to say, like, if there was zero chance of him making any money from being a content creator, would he still do it? I'm not sure he would. I think it's really important to engage with political opponents. I really do. I think debate is really healthy.
To empower people like Lauren Southern and Nick Fuentes with minimal to no pushback, provided it made him richer, so that when he decided to switch tactics and try to reframe the conversation by accusing me of also abetting Southern and Fuentes just by speaking to Destiny, I mockingly accepted his terms and wished him good night, because nothing else stood in need of answer, and nothing else needed to be said. I'm not going to indulge his attempt to sidetrack the conversation and spend hours litigating how many degrees of separation must exist so that the fossilized prune that is the remnants of his
So remember that. So he said he left because he didn't want. He doesn't view it as this hyper nuanced thing, and he doesn't want to give Destiny, the master debater, an opportunity to exercise his master debate skills without President Sunday being well in control of the conversation. So Destiny could justify himself and, you know, convince the audience that President Sunday is wrong.
his conscience can lie down peacefully to die. My task was done. Nobody said anything in that interaction about Destiny talking with people he disagrees with. Nobody even said anything about him talking with people who are pernicious like Lawrence Southern and Nick Fuentes. He can debate them, or be friends with them, or stay up to the wee hours of the night flirting with them on his smartphone. Hell, if Destiny wants to invite Nick and all his Nazi friends over for a big ol' catboy orgy, he has my full blessing, provided he doesn't do so in a manner that financially and politically assists their efforts to fucking kill people. Because that's what Destiny is doing. At the expense of everyone he ever pretended to be defending in the decreasing proportion of cases where he actually argues against them. He is facilitating in function and in fact the real efforts of these individuals to foment the destruction and oppression of entire groups of innocent people. And you, Rose Wrist.
Okay, so that's pretty much done. But, okay, so he said, he essentially said there in the conclusion that Destiny argues less and less with Lawrence Southern. So, this is an argument, that is Blair White. That's between him. This was an argument. I think in this one, they definitely, I don't know. I guess that one is a little pally. They argue in this one for sure. They are like a lot of the interactions that are on YouTube of Destiny and Lawrence Southern are debates. And I really can't think of a debate that Destiny and Lawrence Southern had where Lawrence Southern's ideas weren't trumped, weren't made to look as not good ideas or as weak ideas. And I think Destiny's able to get that again and again and again, those interactions with Lawrence Southern, is because he's able to maintain a friendly relationship with her where he's not trying to just absolutely destroy and embarrass her every time he comes on stream with him. So she'll keep coming back, and her audience will keep coming back, keep being exposed to these better ideas. Because, I mean, if you're on the left, like, I would hope you think your ideas are better and are good, and that they'll beat worse ideas. I understand, like, irresponsible platforming, but I don't really see that happening with Destiny and Lawrence Southern. I just don't. Really just don't. Oh, and there's also that one where Pisco, they had Lawrence Southern was on with Pisco, and Pisco basically got her to own up to her the whole boat flare gun thing. But whatever. It's not hugely important. But back to the whole idea of President Sunday didn't want to debate. I don't think this probably isn't really important to the whole entire narrative.
Her visibility skyrockets. Doesn't matter how well it goes for her in the moment.
So this is really important, but I think it's important at the very end because President Sunday says he didn't want to debate Destiny, but by leaving, that's exactly what he did. Because do you think Destiny just dropped the topic, or do you think he continued the conversation just without President Sunday? And just kind of knocks it appears as if President Sunday left or ran away even, and then Destiny was just free to say his counter argument that would go unchallenged, and it did.
More steps of separation. Otherwise, you are materially helping these people as well.
Is that a fact?
Yes.
Oh, well then enjoy your video game, Steven. Have a good night.
Well, I was gonna say because if I'm having a conversation with you, then I do better in viewership than when I'm not having these types of conversations. And if you're helping to elevate my platform, you're inadvertently also elevating the platform that's elevating other racist people. So, but I guess we didn't get to go to that part. Well,
I think that would have been a fruitful thing to run down. I don't know why President Sunday would be so against running that down. I feel like President Sunday is an all-right debater. He wasn't with Not So Erudite. He kind of lost his mind there. But I feel like he could have handled it here. He should have handled it here. Instead of letting Destiny just say unchallenged what he feels.
okay. That was a that was a conversation, I guess. Yeah, imagine needing to take 3 days to schedule this conversation. Jeez. He was just waiting for a chance to leave and you gave it to him? He sounded like he would have been able to engage.
Yeah, I
But
think President Sunday could have
maybe
engaged.
not. Maybe he just had like this part of the script written out and then he was like done after that, maybe. Oh, true. Maybe it can be a YouTube short. He's a legit schizo. Watch his Vosh debate. I don't watch a bunch of videos on him now. That's fucking weird. They expect one of us in the wreckage, brother. True. Now the real question is he gonna make a video for his YouTube channel about this conversation that was longer than the actual conversation?
But he also included Rose Royce.
Who was that? Some insane dude on Twitter called President Sunday, or like maybe I shouldn't call him insane, but he engages in a lot of Destiny hate, we'll say.
You are monetarily helping people you disagree with by engaging with them at any level. Meanwhile, I will engage with you at this level, and I am totally not monetarily helping you, and not the extension. Those people I disagree with. LOL tilde tilde LOL.
90-minute video with frame chimping, 100% coming with the title Destiny admits he makes videos for money. Technically, he preempted your argument of aiding them by engaging with you, by disengaging with you, so he won that debate on my part. Well, but I mean, technically he lost because now he's elevated my platform, arguably for greed. One thing I don't like is I don't like it when people try so hard to preempt your arguments that they'll try really hard not to agree with pretty obvious stuff. Like when you say something like, well, when you make an argument, aren't you trying to convince somebody of something? And they're like, no. Like, well, wait, hold on. Isn't that kind of the entire purpose of making an argument, is to convince somebody? No. Well, okay. Sure, I guess.
And so President Sunday said it wasn't an argument because Destiny had agreed to it, to the premise with Demon Mama. Destiny said, yeah. But I don't think Destiny was really like full-heartedly agreeing. I think he was just recognizing it as, this is a premise. You're setting up this premise to make a point. Let's get to the conclusion so I can see where this premise goes to what conclusion, and then we can talk about it. So when he was like saying yes, he was like, yeah, I understand where you're going. Not necessarily like, yeah, I agree with your premise and conclusion.
Okay. yeah, I guess. Okay. You think the premise said at the beginning is actually true? It's kind of just accepted in this community, but has anyone actually studied it? Well, the issue, we've had this conversation a lot in my chat, and now I just kind of like disregard it. Because like basically people will say, this is kind of where, oh, here it is. This is kind of where Vosh is at the moment, where he's like, I'm not going to engage with any smaller creator because I don't want to elevate their platform. But it essentially just turns you into like I don't want to say clout shark, but you're basically like, I'll only debate you if you're famous enough, is basically what you're saying, which feels kind of weird, especially if the only way that you climbed as a small content creator is by having larger people like me debate you. So it seems a little bit weird to turn around and do that. But then it also precludes you from basically debating like anybody that disagrees with you unless you can gain off of them, which I think is that's actually the greedy position, right? I'm not going to have a debate with you unless I stand to financially gain from it, which is a little bit weird for me, but.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, so what Destiny said there, I'd say it didn't look like President Sunday was being too terribly convincing and maybe should have, sparred it out with Destiny. And I think Destiny strawmanned President Sunday there, because President Sunday's big disagreement was that Destiny is having Nick Fuentes or Lauren Southern on, but not having substantial disagreements with them, more hanging out with them. and allowing them to sell their charisma. To an audience. But I think at that point, I mean, what hope is there for the world if that's how you see it? You think people as just like just have zero conviction, whoever the funniest person or whatever person in the room is the person whose ideas they're going to agree with. I'm not saying charisma doesn't help you win an audience, but I think at the end of the day, better ideas will win out against worse ideas. And I think a great way to do that is by having a healthy debate discourse with people. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to have a healthy discourse with each other because they're scared of getting dunked on viciously, or they're scared to get embarrassed or whatever. So I think a lot of people who have substantive disagreements will rarely interact with each other. Like I have a suspicion that's why Bosch doesn't like to disagree with Destiny, because I think Destiny is a very good debater. Bosch is a very good debater. And so I think that he has a really hard time grappling with Destiny in the way, because typically Bosch can kind of just dunk on people. Like, he's really good at that, just embarrassing people. I think he's a really hard time with that with Destiny, where Destiny can almost kind of embarrass him. But I think this kind of goes to a larger point. So I'm on the left, I'm a liberal, and I think my ideas are the best, right? I don't know if my ideas are the best. That's why I like to talk to people, get their perspective, see their reasoning, see their lead up. Challenge my own ideas. Hopefully my ideas get better. And I find it really unfortunate that in general we don't have more of a debate kind of culture. And you might say we do, because like obviously debate's huge, but I just find it really disheartening that if you're someone who talks about politics on the internet, it's okay for you to say, I'm never going to debate anyone. Or you putting like very, very heavy restrictions on who you debate. Like, for example, Hasan, I haven't seen, the last person I saw him debate was, who's that psychopath? Christian Walker, a conservative. And, he freaked out. I think that's just not good. I think Chud Logic has it. Like, I think you have to just have...
Just $67.
I think you have to be willing to know you could be wrong in your ideas, and that's why you should seek out debate. So he had this... So Hasan doesn't debate. And I think Hasan doesn't debate because personally, I don't think Hasan has good ideas. I mean, on social stuff, great. I think economically, the socialism stuff, not great. And so just know that doesn't get confused. I mean, like social stuff as in like gay rights, LGBT rights, minority rights, all that stuff. Everyone's created equal. Have at it. Judge them by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. Me and Hasan are 100% on the same exact page with that. But I think Hasan's, he's very socialism-brained. And I think he's a hard time interacting with people who don't see it his way. And he avoids debate. So then he can meet a fucking memer like Christian Walker, who, I mean, I don't want to say I know Christian Walker well at all, but he seems like a dumbass to me. He seems like someone whose almost like whole political position is like a joke. Like, it's like one of the most impressive, like, I don't know, performative art pieces I've ever seen. Because it's one of those things where I can't believe anyone takes him seriously. I think people like him solely because he's just funny. I don't think he's convincing anyone that conservatives are right. And so Hasan had a debate with Christian Walker, and they talked about trans women or women, I think. And Christian Walker was just giving these like very low tier, like typical arguments, like arguments you would expect like anyone, like you talk to like a random conservative on the street who doesn't fucking care about the news or anything. They just like they're conservative because they're conservative. That's how they were brought up, or for some dumb reason. And so they were doing like the very low tier trans arguments, and Hassan was like just couldn't help but he just couldn't get over them. He couldn't grapple with them well. And you'd expect someone who's as big of a political commentator as Hassan to know these arguments and know how to navigate those arguments and know how to destroy those arguments. Didn't. And so one of his chatters said, hey, I think next time you bring in someone, a conservative like Christian Walker, where you know you're going to have like a kind of debate conversation with them, you should maybe kind of like brush up on your topics so you're just a little bit more prepared. So that chatter said that, and this is how Hassan reacted.
You, for the record, my issue as a trans person
tell
is
you
the
what.
fact that you think, okay? This is not a safe space. Shut the fuck up. That's it. And then, like, here's the other part. Like, you, for the record, my issue as a trans person
tell
is
you
the
what.
fact that you, a guy.
You think my stun locks are bad? Jesus Christ. I didn't realize how bad Hassan's stun locks get sometimes. This is crazy. Literally just sat here fucking molding for like 2 hours about something. Fucking hell.
Guy that isn't super well versed on trans shit brought on a known transphobe knowing he might bring up transphobic shit. You aren't exactly a Vosh at trans debates.
But the reason he's not a Vosh at debate is because he doesn't ever debate. So his ideas don't get challenged. So it's very easy. It's very easy to dunk on. Like it's basically like Steven fucking Crowder. You know what I mean? Steven Crowder like does. You might say Steven Crowder debates, but really what he does is Steven Crowder does a bunch of research, and then he goes to a college campus. So then he can talk to a bunch of people who are basically on the same level as Christian Walker, who they have a very passing understanding of the arguments, of the topics. You know, they don't really dig into them. They don't really do a lot of debates or all this stuff. They have no reason to. And then so you can easily destroy their arguments because you did a little bit more research. You have a little bit more nuance. You see all the surface area and all its weaknesses. And Hassan doesn't do that. So then you can give very weak arguments to Hassan, and he'll have a hard time getting around them. It'll be embarrassing. Arguments that he should be able to destroy. And he loses his mind at the smallest part of critique, which is obviously why he doesn't debate.
I hope that the rest of your life is as horrible as it is every single day. Okay? There you go.
What the f...
Oh my god. That should be a copy pasta. I hope. Because at the end of the day, I think it would be really awesome if we had like a very just an incredible debate. I don't know, debatosphere where if you're a big person who talks about politics, you should be shamed for not debating people if people want to debate you. Because then I think it gives space for people like Hassan or Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder to always have all of these opinions on politics and then rarely or never debate competent people. You know, like Steven Crowder, like Hassan doesn't debate at all. Steven Crowder he debates college students. And then Ben Shapiro, he debated Anna Kasparian, which, I mean, like was like once, like the first real debate he did against someone, but it was also like at a political conference in front of a crowd, so it doesn't really count because then the crowd gets involved and just kind of becomes a mess when you do things like that. And the crowd was clearly on Ben Shapiro's side. And I think that's just really sad because I think Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder have really bad ideas. But it's not embarrassing. It's not embarrassing for them to not debate people who are competent. And you saw with Steven Crowder when he got in that call with Ethan from H3H3 and Sam Cedar joined, and he was allowed to run, and that wasn't that embarrassing. Like that should have been devastating for Steven Crowder's career. That should have looked really, really bad. Like you're this guy who talks about politics all the time, and then ostensibly the debate stays the same topics. I mean, I guess it's a little fishy for someone to switch out. It doesn't even matter. I don't need to talk about this. I just think it's really I think it's really, really sad that people can be really big in politics but never have their ideas challenged in a debate. And I think debate is really, really good. Just wish we all cared more about it. All right, end of topic. Geek. Okay. Topic number 2. Oh, this is a fun one. Oh, yep. This is a fun one. Why does it always open a new window? No. Hold on. Is segment destroying? Jerome Davis. Did I write his name down? For Congress. Hold on. I think I wrote that down. Hold on just a second. Davis' son. Dude, why? No. It's gonna be so boring if I can't show it. Hold on. I feel like damn, did he just wipe the slate clean? This is actually going to be devastating if I can't find this. Deb 8. It? 3 fucking things? Oh my gosh, no! Because if you haven't seen the video, this segment's not gonna be nearly as good. You have to take my word for it. That'll be boring. No.
Under its new director, Rohit Chopra, the CFP
Fingers crossed. Boys and girls.
skirting the agency's legal.
Democrats like.
Okay, yes. Yes. whoever this is, the Rational Nation. Okay. So Vosh quote tweeted this other person. They're not important, but this person was saying, so Jerome Davis, Republican. You can get a good idea what this video is going to be about. Notice the KKK, donkey on the breast. So Vosh says, this is the leftist ultimate do you care about politics or the aesthetics of politics test. The content of this ad is psychotic, but it's designed to look and feel extremely based. Stay strong, comrade. Okay, let's watch it.
I'd like to say that no one needs an AR-15 for self-defense. That no one could possibly need all 30 rounds.
Jerome Davison, who is a Republican.
Oh, no.
Democrats like to say that no one needs an AR-15 for self-defense. That no one could possibly need all 30 rounds. But when this rifle is the only thing standing between your family and a dozen...
Okay.
Campaign, which
Who
helps
this
to put
nutsack is.
a bit of this into perspective.
Democrats like to say that no one needs an AR-15 for self-defense. That no one could possibly need all 30 rounds. But when this rifle is the only thing standing between your family and a dozen angry Democrats in Klan hoods, you just might need that semi-automatic and all 30 rounds.
Okay, so it looks pretty based, right? Like, this guy's defending his home. He's black. He's being attacked by the KKK. I think almost everyone would be like, yeah, that's cool. Except he, you know, of course, was saying the Klan are going to be Democrats. Which is, you know, the classic, the Democrats are the real racists. So Vosh again says, this is the leftist ultimate do you care about politics or the aesthetics of politics test. The content of this ad is psychotic, but is designed to look and feel extremely based. Stay strong, comrades. And it does feel extremely based. I mean, I think most of us could say, who's more justified in killing a bunch of people who are on their property than a black guy shooting Klansmen on their property? And in this thread, I saw this reply. It really does, doesn't it? Where this guy named Psychic on Fire says, Vosh wants to stick strong to his Rittenhouse position. He wants people to submit to the mob. Black men versus the KKK submit to the mob. Black men versus the KKK. He wants people to, Jesus. Vosh wants to stick strong to his Rittenhouse case. He wants people to just submit to the mob. Black men for the KKK submit to the mob. Because Vosh is pro-mob, and it wouldn't matter who they're lynching, just as long as he gets to dictate who they are lynching. This person named Solar replies, what? Psychic on Fire says, Vosh has said that people have to submit to the mob as opposed to act in self-defense. Vosh has advocated for political violence. Jeez, I'm having a terrible time reading. Saying that time to enact violence is quite soon. Do the math. Solar, the ad literally says the KKK are Democrats. The point of this tweet is that you shouldn't support the guy running because he doesn't actually care about fighting the KKK. Psychic Fire. Neither does Vosh. His desire with that tweet is to mark him as an enemy on the side of racism, so people feel they have permission to call the guy a race traitor or an Uncle Tom or what have you. Vosh wants lines drawn and heads counted. Solar, this guy is siding with racism. Psychic on Fire, the first critical race theory paper argued Brown versus the Board Education was a mistake. It routinely argues about MLK's position. Kendi argues we need discrimination to fix inequality. I'm pretty sure Republicans think you're the racist trying to start a race war. He kind of goes off the rails here, where he starts talking about Hispanics for some reason and how they're more religious. So I don't think that's really important, but I think he brings up a kind of general idea about Vosh, that Vosh thinks you should submit to the mob, and he mentions Rittenhouse. So, what I think he's referring to, Psychic Fire, that is, I think he's referring to when Destiny and Vosh debated about Kyle Rittenhouse shooting the people he did at the Kenosha riots. So this was shortly after the riots that Vosh and Destiny had this debate about how to handle yourself when it comes to like an active shooter mob situation. Are you allowed to defend yourself, or should you submit to the mob? So let's see if Psychic Fire is right in that Vosh believes every person should submit themselves to a mob instead of defending themselves.
Why do I care so much what people think about me?
Why do you care so much about that?
My favorite part about...
Ugh. All the way. I have to play all this ad? Cool, man. Not cool.
Once, America made the chips that power the world. But bad decisions in Washington drove our cars up.
That, do you think being chased down by a person, if you have a firearm, means that you're morally justified in shooting them?
Absolutely, yes.
You don't believe in like escalation of force, like there needs to be a demonstration.
Okay, so again, they're arguing about the Rittenhouse Kenosha scene. And this is before the trial, and it's based entirely off the video evidence that was released shortly after those shootings happened. So at the beginning, they're kind of talking about self-defense, kind of running that through.
Of lethal escalation of force before you're.
Okay, in the 3 minutes.
That do you think being chased down by a person, if you have a firearm, means that you're morally justified in shooting them?
Absolutely, yes.
You don't believe in like escalation of force, like there needs to be a demonstration of lethal escalation of force before you're allowed to respond in kind, or
if you're brandishing a firearm, somebody.
And so even right here, I think we could say. I would say that Psychic Fire is wrong, because the whole argument Vosh is making here is that they believed that Kyle Rittenhouse had demonstrated and enacted lethal force, and the mob was trying to stop him. And so was Kyle Rittenhouse justified in self-defense? Destiny thinks so, Vosh does not. But trust me, they'll get into much more specific examples that apply much better. And also we'll just flesh out their entire position, because obviously this is a little, maybe he's talking about this specific example, maybe he's a little biased, whatever. So we'll get into it.
Somebody's charging you anyway, I think it's fair to assume that that person likely has lethal intent. They could be carrying a knife, or they could be planning to take your firearm from you and kill you with it. You have no way of knowing that. It's not your responsibility to know that. If you're trying to comply with what I would consider a moral duty to retreat, which it seems like he was running away, but another person is charging after you regardless, by the time you've ascertained whether or not they have like a knife or something, you're likely already going to die. So yeah, I think that you have a right to defend yourself in that circumstance.
Okay. So if we're strictly speaking like morally here, I think that's abhorrent. You could potentially justify.
Can you tell me why?
Oh yeah, because you could potentially justify with that line of logic an unbelievable range of potential justifications for engaging in like a preemptive lethal force.
Right. So just a little taster. So he this isn't too applicable to the Davis situation. But the idea is that Bosch thinks that Kyle Rittenhouse should have submitted to the mob because Kyle Rittenhouse had the means for lethality, very obvious means for lethality, and the mob didn't. That's why he talked about, and that's why in this next one he's going to talk about, you never really know the intentions of the mob. They very well, and usually in his mind, are very likely to not kill you. And so the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse has very easy means of lethality and the mob doesn't, that Kyle should have submitted himself to prevent fewer people from.
I mean, it wouldn't be difficult for me to provide a use case because it's entirely possible to tackle somebody without having any lethal intent. But if a person...
Do you think you... Wait. Can you know that?
Well, no, but you can't know that no matter what.
So you acknowledge then that there's a probability that if the guy either takes your firearm from you or has a knife in him, that he will kill you, right?
Well, there's always a probability whether or not you've already demonstrated lethal intent, but you were the one who escalated force by brandishing lethal intent to begin with.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
Do you think the person with the bag of coke brandished lethal intent before the person with the gun did?
We don't know. It happened off video. All we've seen, and now it's possible. I'm going to admit this, okay? Because I don't know. I know you guys love covering breaking news. It's possible that maybe this guy with the firearm was actually provoking people to doing something earlier. That is possible. I don't think that justifies the guy chasing him. I think that's still stupid. But maybe it's some more moral ground to stand on. But I don't think either of us know that. All we've seen in a video is a guy running away with a rifle, being chased by another guy with a bottle. That's all I've seen so far, at least.
So if it were somehow, and I'm not saying this is the case because I don't know any more than you, but if it were somehow demonstrated then that the person with the gun brandished it unlawfully or otherwise demonstrated lethal intent without provocation and was then chased down and then killed or engaged.
Okay, so Destiny's getting mad there about the whole lawful thing. But here's the thing. Davis is on his property, and the Klan is on his property, ostensibly trespassing. We're also in Klan robes, which I think most people would be scared of. As a white person, if I saw a Klansman on my property, I would be scared. But they were also brandishing. What was garden tools. Shouldn't have closed. We're gonna be popping back and forth. Right, so they got their little tools there. 5 seconds really. A little lower than that. This guy? Yeah, so they're brandishing tools. I don't think they're there to work in a garden. Clear that they're there to do more than just tackle someone. They have pretty easy means to cause lethal damage. I think it'd be pretty hard to say that these people, if given what they want, would engage in more than just like a beating or whatever. They could very easily, even accidentally, cause lethal effects with the tools they have. Okay, now they're kind of talking about who did what first and what does that mean.
Your assumption then is even if the shooter was the one who initially brandished lethal intent, they would be justified in killing anyone who attempted to stop them.
If he's aggressing on other people, but he wasn't aggressing, he was retreating.
What if he
was running away?
What if he brandished a firearm or threatened somebody verbally or pointed a firearm at somebody or otherwise unlawfully brandished a firearm and then ran?
Wait, stop saying law. Stop saying law. We're talking morals. We're pivoting to so many different. So just focus on the moral part,
when I say unlawfully brandish, what I'm trying to clarify is that he wasn't brandishing it in response to a legitimate threat to his own person. He was pointing it to. I don't know.
So just said like aggressive.
Sure, okay.
That's fine. I understand what you're saying. I was trying to make it clear. I don't think you're trying to make it a legal argument. I understand. Yeah, go ahead.
So aggressing upon other people and then he runs off. You speak of probabilistic circumstances. The people who are chasing him have no idea whether or not he No idea whether or not he poses a threat to other people, whether he's just trying to round a corner. What's more, I don't know how much the morality of the action is necessarily tied to the individual's ability to process the probabilistic outcomes of what response they should take to the potential of an active shooter.
And so again here, they're approaching his property where they know he lives. Again, I don't think Vosh is claiming that they should submit. So he's really trying to justify the mob's actions here, not so much self-defense, whether you should submit to the mob. Because they're kind of in reversed. No, they're kind of in the same, except Davison's not retreating, but he doesn't have a right, or not a right, a duty to retreat when on your own property, at your own home. So this is where we get into the nuance.
Do it. I'm gonna fuck you. Let's say you pull out your gun.
Previously, so the unknowns and ambiguity is a big part of really where both of these guys disagree, as we'll see later.
He's like, and he runs after you anyway. Maybe you turn around and you're running away and he's still throwing shit at you and chasing you. In that case, would the guy have justification to turn around and shoot the guy chasing him that said he was gonna fucking kill him?
I guess it would largely depend on how credible you believe the threat to be. I don't think so, generally.
Okay,
no, if they
cool.
don't have a
Then
weapon.
it sounds like we don't disagree. Then it sounds like we don't disagree on this.
Wait, then we agree it was immoral to murder the person who was chasing.
No, you just said that if you felt like if you had a...
So I think that's a big part of the confusion. Because Vosh still believes that Kyle Rittenhouse should have submitted.
gun and you felt like the guy chasing you.
But it's not nearly as applicable. But I just want to make sure this is clear. Maybe I didn't say this clearly enough in the beginning. I see that claim. I see this claim that Psychic Fire made. I feel like I see it a lot. Not a lot, but I feel like I'll see whispers of it on Twitter and whatnot. And yeah, it never does like a big killing, and maybe it's just a few psychos like Psychic on Fire, who's probably a bit of a psycho. But I feel like people have a misunderstanding of Vosh's argument due to this debate. And I think it's just strange, because at the end of the day, I think Vosh was a little biased when it came to the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. There's BLM protesters and this kid who seemed like a LARPy, Kyle Rittenhouse seemed like a LARPy policeman who, you know, maybe was trying to stir up trouble for an excuse to shoot someone. And I think that's kind of the headspace Vosh is operating in. So he kind of has a hard time coming to... Like, I think Destiny looks really good in this part of the debate, because he's basically just saying, you know, Kyle Rittenhouse is running, and then he turns around and because he's still being chased, so he feels threatened, so he's allowed to shoot. So, but Vosh thinks he should have submitted, because I think Vosh is operating in a headspace that Kyle Rittenhouse showed up to to antagonize people, to gain the excuse to shoot someone. I'm not obvious, and clearly the law eventually showed wasn't the case. Okay, it gets better at the end, trust me. Probably cut 31. We should have used links. Scared of there being...
Okay, in that case, I'm just curious to see where you stand on self-defense, okay? Let's say that you have a person that is significantly smaller than another person, and they're running away, okay? Let's say that other person is chasing them and has said, I'm gonna come and beat the shit out of you, okay? Let's say that the person being chased has two options. One is to lose the fight and then endure whatever the attacker wishes to levy on that person, or two, to pull out a weapon and deliver lethal intent. What do you think that person's moral obligation is? Should they be allowed to defend themselves with lethal force, or should they be forced to submit to their aggressor and endure whatever they want to deal out to?
Without knowing who the aggressor was there, you're offering me a choice between one person dying for sure and one person maybe dying. In which case, I would...
Right, so this is a big crux of Vosh's argument, which I think most people would agree this is a pretty yikesy argument. Where you're not allowed to defend yourself with lethal intent, because you defending yourself with lethal intent would guarantee or almost guarantee someone dies instead of maybe someone not dying. I think is pretty weird argument, and why I think a lot of people have this take, because this part of Vosh's argument is really disagreeable.
I would say, without knowing who aggressed, I would say that I would take, getting the kid beating the shit out of them, because I don't know who the aggressor
that's good.
is.
I'm glad then, because we just fundamentally disagree.
Okay.
I think that if you have a means to defend yourself, I don't think you should have to submit your body to another aggressor. I think that's wrong. I would say the same to a
would
woman who
depend on
thinks she
the
might be
aggressor.
getting raped. No, it
Wait,
wouldn't.
wait, no, that's non-comparable, because in the case of the rape, the
Absolutely
rapist is the
comparable.
aggressor. If the person who was charging at that kid was the aggressor, undeniably, then I would agree with you. That kid had every right to gun them down. But we don't know.
Yeah, so, and this is kind of the whole thing, why Vosh wouldn't agree with this video. Because this guy's on his own property, and the clan are coming onto his property. And even if they weren't armed with garden tools, I'm perfectly okay with shooting these clansmen. People showing up in fucking ghost outfits is weird. I would be scared. And so that's kind of the thing. So basically, for this to be applicable, or somewhat applicable, to Psychic Fire's point, essentially, Jerome Davison would have had to had been somewhere else, and then maybe he, to kind of like maybe draw this comparison and make it as one-to-one as possible while still being true to the video, to the political ad, is basically Davison would have had to been out. He got attacked by someone, a Klansman, and he shot that Klansman dead, went home, and then a mob of Klansmen showed up because, maybe they would have said because they believed him to be an active shooter in his own house. In which case, you could maybe argue that Vosh would say that, but with the tools alone, and even if we were to say that they weren't in clans robes, the clans robes alone would be like, yeah, you're allowed to use lethal effect, because they're probably going to do very bad stuff. But them just showing up with the tools means they're not going to just tackle you and beat you. They're probably going to kill you.
Only way that you know, but you're not saying we don't know. You're trying to draw up some potential story where this guy with a gun threatened a bunch of people and then ran away as soon as another guy. Like, I guess that could happen, but you have no reason to believe that's the case. You have no evidence.
Wait, you don't think it's like you don't think it's like a 50-50 on that? Like, so this is a kid.
And I know Vosh's argument sounds a little wild right now, but you have to, again, understand, he's operating under the assumption, like how Rittenhouse went to this thing to instigate people, to get an excuse to shoot someone. Later we'll see an example where Vosh's like philosophical stance here is actually very agreeable. And Destiny even agrees with it at some point. They actually very much agree. They just kind of have like a different arbitrary point at which they think you defending yourself is allowed. And we'll see that. And I think it's interesting because they have a very heated debate. And I think it's primarily because I think Vosh, at least at the time, believed that Kyle had gone there to instigate people so he can have the excuse to shoot someone in cold.
Who, I mean, judging from at least the social media we've seen, definitely has a pretty strong political bent. The odds of like a far right militia kid brandishing a firearm at another person or aggressing, I would say.
Now this is where, yeah, sure. So now we've left the moral arguments and now we're playing the breaking news game, because I've seen videos where that guy was running an EMT station and he said he supports Black Lives Matter. He just wanted to make sure that people were only riding against the government and not other people. So now what does it look like? He was literally saying he was pro Black Lives Matter earlier and that he was running an EMT station. So now what are the odds?
I don't know. So do you want to then dispense with any presumption of initial aggressing and just like work with the ambiguity? I haven't seen that video, by the way. I'd be very interested in seeing that video.
Sure, no one in your chat will probably have it. If you go to my chat, I'm sure like a ton of people will link it.
Why do you keep accusing my chat of being hyper biased and partisan? I'd like to think that I cover things from a reasonable angle.
You do more than most, but the socialist shit, it just makes me want to fucking off myself.
What socialist
but you do
shit?
better than
This
most,
isn't a socialist issue.
It definitely is. It definitely falls along the huge like anti-cop, anti-whatever. Like I see all that shit coming out.
The most
like, hardcore
aggressively partisan people on this issue are Kyle Kulinski types, and he's not even a proper socialist.
Okay, we can pretend that's the case if you want. Sure.
Wait, do you? Okay, I don't know what bias you're coming into this with.
Okay. A little too argumentative.
You're only saying it because you want to be right or whatever in this particular thing. The idea that if one person is running from somebody else and the other person is the aggressor, and the one person and the person running has to either choose between using lethal defense or just submitting themselves to the whims of their aggressor, that you think that person is morally obligated to submit themselves to, I don't think you actually
I don't
believe that.
buy
think
your
you just
premise
use-
that running away in the video that we've seen makes them not the
Well,
aggressor.
I'm not using no. I'm just asking because I wanted to explore this in a moral vacuum. I just asked in that particular case, and even in that vacuum, you said no because you said, and I quote, "If I have to choose between one person dying and one person potentially dying, well, the other person should just choose to potentially die rather than definitely kill the other person."
When it is not known who the aggressor is, that would be the side that I would take. If it's known who the aggressor is, I'll side against them every time.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Hold on.
Yeah. So like the
Okay,
rapist thing
that's
isn't
interesting.
Right. So, assuming the Klan is the aggressor here, and historically they were, Davison would be very okay in defending. But what I think is interesting is they move on into hypotheticals that get very close to even making this situation like to almost one-to-one the situation shown in this political ad as a hypothetical. I think that's interesting. Get to that.
You're shooting up to this point. Let's assume that. Do you think that all of the self-defense here is justified, or do you think it's not
But Bosch says something. He says something weird here.
justified,
No.
and why?
Because this is an incredibly dangerous moral standard that we're setting right here, where anytime you shoot someone in public and people come to stop you, you can keep killing people because you keep exercising self-defense until you're standing on top of a mountain of corpses. Like you morally, what you're justifying here
let
is.
me ask. Please stop preaching. Please stop this.
Why
It
are
is
you?
So
Wait.
fucking cringe to me.
Come
Okay?
on. Wait. Seriously, preaching?
No. Yeah. Yes. This whole like pulpit of like standing on a fucking pile of bodies.
I think you've had a lot of bad experiences with left.
No. I watch your stuff and I appreciate it, but sometimes you get very preachy. I'm not interested. Okay. So I'm asking a very simple question. Let's say that I defend myself.
See, that take is so weird from Bosch because it almost sounds like he's saying, like, if we were to assume that the Klan thought Davison was an active shooter and they showed up like this, that maybe he would have to submit. But we'll see. That's not the case.
Well, like in an okay manner, one time with a gun, okay? And we both agree that it's justified. And then I try to remove myself from the situation after that. If people charge me because they think that I was unjustified and it looks like they're going to kill me for it, should I just say, well, okay, you're right, and let them kill me?
You for it. We can't assume that about everyone who runs up to you.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying so hard because you're being so dishonest, okay?
How
and
am
I don't know if you can
dishonest? Wait, my standards here have been completely consistent. In both instances, I have said that if the person who is chasing initiates and the person who has the gun verbally...
Vosh, one of the guys chasing this guy literally has a pistol drawn. Come on, dude. You're really going to do this?
Yeah.
Really? You don't think that it's fair to assume
the person
that
with the pistol hadn't fired?
You?
The person with the pistol hadn't fired. They were like right up close. It seems like that was more of an attempt at apprehension than it was at murder.
So now the waters are a little muddied, right? So if the situation if in the situation Davison had killed the Klan's member previously, and then his Klan buddies showed up to apprehend Davison on his property, would they be justified? Would they be justified in showing up to his house if they thought he was an active shooter? But I mean, they really wouldn't. Vosh's whole take isn't just submitting to the mob. The issue is that Vosh believes either, and we'll see this even further as they go into more hypotheticals and they abstract more, that the mob, that Kyle Rittenhouse should have submitted to the mob because he had killed someone and the mob believed him to be an active shooter, and they were more like, or that it's unsure if they were going to kill him, but even if they were, less people would die if Kyle Rittenhouse submitted to the mob and the mob killed him. Which is a bit of an unsatisfying conclusion. Because I think most people in that situation would say, I would rather kill a bunch of people than kill myself.
In fact, by the way, I just want to say, if you're running from someone or you fall down and you turn around and there's somebody pointing a pistol at you 2 feet in front of you and they haven't fired, I think that's more of an indication of non-lethal intent than it is lethal intent.
I think that's crazy. I mean, this isn't a movie. I think most people are going to react. I just can't imagine in a situation like being on a street at nighttime, you see a gun and you don't react crazily, thinking that I'm going to be shot soon or he just hasn't shot yet kind of a thing. I don't know how you would expect someone to think this is just an arrest, like a cop, you know, with their gun drawn on you, they're not going to shoot.
That is,
Really?
honestly, on the part of the person with the pistol, probably a legitimate attempt at apprehending you than it is killing you. They could have shot you in the back.
That when this guy was aiming his rifle at the other guy, then who raised his hands and backed away, or earlier when he killed that one dude and he didn't kill the other guy that showed up to do first aid to him, then he wasn't trying to be like lethal towards everyone as well. Would you grant that same thing to the defender here, the shooter?
I mean, no, because the shooter was the first person who killed a person, so it's reasonable for other people to consider him a threat. If you chase after a person who's being described as an active shooter with a pistol, you're not the one who's looking to go initiate. You're certainly not going to be considered a threat by the people around you.
So then let's return back to the other hypotheticals, because now we're working in a moral vacuum. Because I'm truly bewildered by your statements here.
Okay.
If you defend yourself with lethal force against somebody, and now a mob of people are chasing you for what was a justified use of self-defense, do you submit yourself? Okay, I'm gonna say this really slow for you. Okay.
Patronize.
I'm trying. Okay, as hard as I can. If you defend yourself in a morally justified way against somebody, okay, so don't say I don't know if it was justified. Again, for the third time. Okay, if you defend yourself in a morally justified way, and then you retreat from that situation, and a mob is chasing you down, and it's possible that they'll kill you if they get their hands on you. Do you think you're obligated to submit yourself to the mob?
I actually have to think about that. Generally, I think, yeah. Because otherwise, you could ethically justify killing an theoretically unlimited number of people as they continue to try to apprehend you for what they consider to be an unjust.
So that sounds really, really bad. I think most people would disagree with that. Because, I mean, imagine if we were to do a situation where Davison killed... Let's take away the Klan's robes, because I think, I mean, just anyone, like, even if there wasn't the stigma, or whatever you want to call it, the infamy around Klan's robes, just anyone wearing an outfit like that, I would be like, these people are up to no good. It's just kind of hard to believe that Bosch would say the same. If this guy, if Davison had killed, even say, a racist, there was like a White Lives Matter riot, and Davison killed one of them, and they were chasing Davison. Would he have the right to defend himself? I would imagine Bosch would say. But maybe not.
Just murder. Like, because, like, morally, you have to understand, like, even in individual circumstances, it can be justifiable. In this case, like, because you're working with limited information.
So, no. We're in the moral vacuum. If we have a disagreement on a fundamental moral level, we don't need to make it more complicated than that. We disagree right here. We don't have to go any further. Okay.
Well, sure, yeah. So I think the consequences of accepting the idea that you can continue to kill people who aggress on you after you've killed another person are far worse than the ones in which you must submit to them. Yes. Vastly so. Yes, absolutely. Because otherwise, every...
Why do you keep pivoting to the law? And fine, I'm gonna go ahead and
because I want to establish that my beliefs are not...
Sure. One black man about to be lynched by 9 white people. That black man should just submit himself to the white people.
One black man about to be...
Can you please just bite the bullet on that? Please
one
just say
black
yes,
man about to be lynched with knowledge that there is about to be lethal force aggressed in them has every right to defend himself to any number of people. However, what we're talking about...
Right, and again, Klansmen, they're wearing fucking Klan's robes, so... They have a history for doing very bad things to black men. I mean, black people in general. I shouldn't say black men. But they're also holding, you know, tools, guarding tools that could easily inflict, could easily have a lethal effect on
here is an ambiguous threat from people who are not
my
necessarily
God.
acting immorally.
An ambiguous
Those people
threat
he
to throw
shot probably
yourself
thought
to
they
a
were chasing.
mob of people?
First of all, yes. We have seen plenty of. Wait. Why are you talking like we haven't seen months of videos from BLM protests where people have gotten mobbed and lived? Okay, so first
Don't
of
we
all,
have
the
several
idea.
examples of being mobbed and killed?
Yeah, that's the coin flip. But
So why would you coin flip if you feel like you're in the right? Why would
because
you let
the
a-
people
a coin
chasing
flip your
also
life?
feel they're in the right. And if your logic is continued to its logical conclusion, every time there's an active shooter situation, anytime those people then try to stop the shooter will continue killing the innocent people. Your situation leads to
maybe-
more innocent
I
people getting
agree.
killed.
Maybe in a circumstance then where we don't have all the information, maybe we shouldn't be so.
I mean, I really appreciate Bosch's utilitarian outlook. Just, I don't think we can expect people to really act like that. All right. So Bosch said no to the Klan thing. Because I mean, if people are dressed like the KKK, very likely they're gonna lynch you, especially if you're a non-white person. So Davison would be very justified in not submitting to the mob. And then we have another Klan example.
It's like pretty understandable.
Because what you're doing when you phrase it that way is you're conflating different types of mobs. So there's a big difference between a mob of Klansmen who are chasing a black guy and a mob of people who are chasing you because they just saw you murder an individual and then run away. There's a huge difference between the relative levels of moral responsibility in these two mobs. So when you just say submit to mob rule, what you're doing there is you're conflating examples where it would be justifiable and unjustifiable to respond violently. If
We
a black
don't
guy's
know,
getting
but-
chased by Klansmen, he can do whatever the fuck he wants to the people chasing him. But in this case, the logic of if you've shot a person and others come chasing you, you can shoot those people too, ends up leading to a cascading effect where either everyone flees or everyone dies. And I don't think that's a reasonable expectation given the way people
Why-
predictably
it's
behave in
not-
mob situations.
I don't understand where this everyone dies comes from. Now, I could be wrong, but I can't think of a case where an entire mob chased one dude that killed like 90 people. Generally, like a few people get shot. So I know that we want to make it as extremist as possible. Like every single person is going to die down to the last baby fighting. Okay. I don't think that's how any of these things play out. Okay. If a mob of people, this is what you're arguing, if a mob of people has perceived that you've committed a crime and they decide that it's on them to enact justice against you, and you don't feel you've committed a crime, I think you have every right to defend yourself. What you're arguing for, and I'm going to virtue signal some more, how many times does a white woman scream and a black guy is like retreating from some area and a bunch of white people hunt him down because they think that black dude raped the white woman? Like historically, this has actually been a pretty big part of like American history. And the fact
Except-
that you would say, well, you know, if they really feel like that guy
That
had
black
committed a
guy
crime, I mean,
doesn't
like,
commit a. Wait, hold on. Wait. Your argument just supports me. So assuming we're not talking about the black guy. Wait, hold on. So assuming we're not talking about the black guy literally being lynched. So assuming we're talking about like a mob attempt at like getting them or something.
Yeah.
So there's no
Yeah.
implicit lethal threat on the part of the
Sure.
people chasing that black guy. And the black guy himself does not have a weapon, as you haven't accounted for in this situation. I assume, unless he's like carrying for some reason. In that case, it would be best for that black guy to then stop and let himself be arrested rather than to kill everyone chasing him for thinking that he had just committed a rape.
Okay.
Now, that sometimes leads to bad outcomes, but I think it will more often lead to bad outcomes if you give permission for any person being like run down the ability to just gun down people chasing them if they don't believe there's a threat to their life. Now, if they were coming at them with like pitchforks, then the lethal reprisal would be justified.
And the Klansmen in the ad had a pitchfork, or very close to.
Because that would be a very obvious, clear and present threat to their life. But I think that's important. That's an important distinction.
Sure. I don't think it is at all. I think this is an insane argument. I don't even know if you believe what you're saying right now, but
Well,
I don't know. We
really?
can visit this in the future. Yeah,
Wait.
no. What you've just said is absolutely fucking insane. But I think it's really funny.
I think
but maybe
what
like,
I've said.
in the future.
Wait. I'm not moving off the morality argument. I feel like what I'm saying is mostly in line with law, which would indicate that and law is an attempt to sort of formalize morality, often very imperfect. So I would say that in this respect, my position is more institutionally justifiable than yours. Do you not agree with that?
I don't know. The law always plays out in strange ways when it comes to like self-defense cases. I'm pretty sure there was I feel like I saw a case. I could be wrong, but wasn't there a guy at like a gas station that was like outside and he like shot a black dude like 3 times with self-defense? That guy could have easily gotten out. Why did he execute this?
Okay. So you might be thinking that Vosh's positions are a little wacky, but his hypothetical here will really illustrate what he's getting at. And I think in this situation, we would all submit to the mob.
Like super hyperbolic, but I genuinely want to know what your
go for
perspective
it.
is. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say for example that you're in like, I'm trying to think of some stupid example that would work. I don't know. You're in like a teacher's office in college or some dumb shit, and you're attacked by the teacher, and you end up shooting them. Perfectly legitimate self-defense, perfectly fine. In that respect, the cameras will, you know, exculpatory evidence you later. However, afterwards, people hear the shot, they come in, they're screaming, they see you with a smoking gun, and these students, believing you just murdered their professor, try to charge you. Now, that's a lot of people coming in. Do you believe you're morally justified in just gunning the students down as they enter? Or do you think that in that respect, the moral decision would be to set aside your gun, to drop your firearm, to put your hands up, and just recognize that even if your initial action was justified, in this respect, it's probably better to defer to the coin flip of the mob than it is to just kill a bunch of probably very innocent people?
So, and I think we would all agree that in that situation, Vosh's prescription of submitting to the mob, 100% the thing you should.
So the two things that I'm gonna argue against here. Firstly, how old are the students? Because we're talking kindergartners.
No, adults. Sorry, college, like adults.
We're talking college age students. Okay, like in this particular case, I would have to think about it. It really depends. But the problem is that being inside of like a school setting as opposed to being like out on the streets, I think are two far different environments. Like the chances of like some super ultra fucked up shit happening to you like in a classroom, like if you drop your gun and you're like, holy shit guys or whatever, I think is way different than a mob of people that are chasing you out on the street. I think these are two wildly different scenarios.
I mean, I don't know if I agree. I assume if I said the same thing except outside, like you're around a building's corner and the same thing happens between you and a teacher, then a bunch of students run around, try to mob you. I assume then, since it's outside, you think you would be justified in killing them to defend yourself?
I mean, you're talking about like on a school campus. Like people are here to like learn and shit. Like this is way different than like you're out on the street. But on the street during protests and rioting, like people are riled the fuck up, like looking.
Right. So I think Vosh is 100% right in his like hypotheticals. But I think the thing he's kind of leaving out is sort of like the mania and the chaos of the riots, where like stuff's being destroyed, fires are being set, and also when they were chasing Rittenhouse in the video they watched earlier, like people were saying like, "Let's get him." So even though like it's a weird situation because I 100% agree with Vosh and his hypotheticals, but I 100% think that if a mob is chasing you down in the street after you justifiably killed someone, you shouldn't submit to the mob. So that part really shows, just to kind of even out Vosh's position, so it seems less hypothetical or less exaggerated. I think a lot of people focus on the earlier part of this debate, where Vosh does seem less unreasonable or making a prescription for people that most people, I think, wouldn't follow in practice in Kyle Rittenhouse situation, or the hypothetical where you kill someone justifiably and then people start chasing you and you're not sure if they're going to kill you or not, that you should just submit to the mob, make that coin flip. I think most people would defend themselves fearing for their life. Okay. So, Psychic Fire, completely wrong. Vosh would not recommend Jerome Davis submit to this mob of KKK members holding garden tools and many other tools. Okay. I saw this a little bit ago from Bill Burr's podcast. And he talks about this article he read. He's kind of just riffing on that. About this woman who, it's just really weird because we're going to read the article, and it's just very weird because it's like entirely from the woman's perspective in a relationship and getting married, when this is just good advice for anyone. But it's just weird how oddly sexist it is. You'll see. I don't want to give it all away, but we're going to read the article that Bill Burr talks about.
I don't know. There's something so solitary about being a comedian that you start to be this little dictator in your life. So like when someone disagrees with you, you're just like, silence! You know, you can go that route. But like I got in this huge debate with Nia. Somebody had sent me this thing on Twitter about some woman in Cosmopolitan, right? She got married at 24. It was warning women to get a prenup. She got married at 24. 24, what do you got? You got student loans and a dream. That's all she had. And she got married. So, and she married this guy who has like a master's degree, well-educated guy and everything. Well, and long story short, she blows up. She wrote like, I'm not going to name the movies. I don't want to out the, even though they put in the thing, but she wrote like, these 3 really fucking funny movies. And now she's writing Cosmo and all this stuff. Like she blew up, blah, 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 blah. They grew apart. And now they're getting a divorce.
Right.
And the lawyer said, well, he's probably going to ask for alimony. And she's like, there's no way he's going to make that big of a pussy move. There's no way he's going to do it. And, of course, the guy does it. And then she's just like, and she's angry. She goes, every month when I have to write him this check for like $6,000 or something and blah, 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 blah. And the whole time I'm reading the article, I'm like, I agree with every fucking thing this person's saying. That guy is a pussy, the whole thing. But what pissed me off was she made it a gender issue, where she said, women, watch out for this. And my wife just couldn't see that.
Right, and we'll see this. It is strange how she makes it only about women instead of just, this is something everyone should.
And I was like, I think it was astoundingly ignorant to try to take something like that, considering most of the time it affects guys. Guys are the ones getting, they always sit there and they go, hey, a woman gets 77 cents for every dollar a guy makes an hour. It's like, yeah, but you make it up on the back end during the divorce.
Right.
But I don't think that should be right. But this is the deal. Like, no guy is ever going to get on TV complaining about alimony. You're just another guy bitching about alimony. But she could actually make a difference. If a woman got on TV and actually just said the divorce laws out here in California are absolutely insane. They are insane.
Right.
She could actually, you would be hard pressed to think of a show like those types of show that she couldn't get on. And instead, all she does is write an article and she warns women. And
yeah. And so, it's interesting before airing this or whatever you want to say, before I decided to cover this, there's a big, so originally, a big part of alimony was for when women. It was much harder for women to get jobs, much harder women to get good-paying jobs, and also, women were supposed to take care of the kids. So very economically disadvantaged. So if there was a divorce, women were at a huge. If you were a divorced woman, it's probably not looking good for you financially. You're going to need some help. And so one of the ways that we want to, we as a society went about that is through alimony. And it used to be entirely gendered, where a man could only pay alimony to a woman. And then I think it was like 2012 or something like that. Somewhat recently, like the laws in California, they made it ungendered. So a woman, whoever made more, would pay the person who made less. And I read a few articles about women who married, just complete losers, and they ended up paying them a shit ton of money. And I mean, this woman in this example definitely was paying her husband a lot of money.
And
Well, but here's the now I hear you. 100%.
And we got in this big beef where she was just like, well, why do you feel she has to give you your comeuppance? I'm like, there's no comeuppance in this. And I actually said, you know what? This is actually my fault because of all the bad shit I've said about women. That's all you're hearing right now, and I'm not saying it. She's 100% right. That guy is a fucking pussy. It's even worse when a guy does it to a woman. I know it's a double standard, but can I get a fucking job? I swear to God, dude. I joked. I said if I was married to Oprah, okay, and she's making $1 billion. If she came home and she fucking bought me a car, I tell her to take it back.
All right. And we'll watch the rest of this, but he kind of goes on a tangent about what it means to be a man and accepting, just making just what he needs to be to feel like a man. All right. But here is the article, Why Every Woman Should Get a Prenup by Karen McCullough. And this is Karen McCullough. She's got some absolute bangers. Legally Blonde, Ugly Truth, 10 Things I Hate About You, House Bunny. Legally Blonde's actually a banger. I'm not sure about these other ones, but they are definitely good movies. So, she's for sure doing all right. And she's written for a lot of things, but those are the 4 big ones. So, homegirl here, Karen McCullough, is doing well. So here's her article, Why Every Woman Should Get a Prenup by Karen McCullough. The tagline is, when I got married as a penniless 24-year-old, never imagined I'd out-earn my husband or how that would affect me financially, especially when we got divorced. There are hundreds of details that a bride-to-be has to deal with in the months before her wedding. The band, the flowers, where to seat relatives who despise one another and are likely to throw things, but unfortunately the detail that can make the most significant difference in her life is often overlooked. A prenup. The reason for this are understandable. No bride ever wants to imagine the day she's going to get divorced. Fight the odds. Who would? But I believe the main reason a prenup isn't considered is because many young women getting married are in the same situation that I was. The owner of nothing but credit card debt. When I got married at 24, a prenup never even remotely occurred to me. What was there for him to take? My visa bill? But 18 years later, when I divorced my husband, I had a successful writing career and some money in the bank. He got to take half of it, but it isn't even the fact that I had to give him half that I found so egregious. It's the alimony he demanded I pay him on top of it that makes me very, very angry. Like scream really loud, get drunk, and eat gratuitous carbohydrates angry. On the first day of every month, I have to write him a mother beeping check for $6,000. I've been doing this for 2.5 years, and I've got 5 more left. How did this happen? Because California divorce laws are antiquated and ridiculous and favor the less successful spouse. You're probably thinking he must have been raising our children while I was acting as the breadwinner. Nope, we don't have any. The state of California says I'm supposed to keep him at the standard of living he got used to during our marriage, even though he's no longer my husband. So despite the fact that he's a master's degree and more marketable skills than I do, I have to give up my quality of life in order to maintain his. I can no longer afford such luxuries as cable TVs and haircuts. I don't believe that. That's a reach. I could afford cable TV. Don't fucking get the cheapest haircuts in the world. When my divorce lawyer, Melanie, first told me that my ex was eligible for spousal support, the new way of saying alimony, I replied, there's no way he's ever going to ask for that. That would be such a pussy move. She shook her head, looked at me across her desk, and said, every woman who sat in that chair has said the same thing. Get ready, because he's going to ask for it. She was right. Melanie and her firm, Wasser, Cooperman, and Carter, had a roster of female clients who, like me, wish they could build a time machine and go back and make their ex sign a prenup before they walk down the aisle. I've met a few. We managed to find another at parties. Maybe it's the look of disbelief and rage we all share. We end up huddling in the corner, discussing ways to cut down our monthly bills so we can afford to write that damn check. One woman was going to hire her ex to be her nanny. He didn't want the job. Why would he? He doesn't need a job. He gets her checks every month. I once had a first date with a fireman, no less, who after the topics of divorce and alimony came up, said, "Being your ex sounds like a great gig. I know I'd be taking that check." I informed him that if he told me a Kardashian was filleting him under the table as we were eating, that would have been less offensive than what he just said. Not really throwing the Kardashians under the bus there. Come on. Women support women. So, brides-to-be, I implore you, whether or not you have a penny to your name, right now, make that man sign a prenup that spells out a fair division of the assets based on percentages of income earned, and most important, eliminates spousal support for both of you. See, she does kind of clean it up in the end, being kind of less gendered. I think she's just in such a blind rage that she can't help but see this as like kind of talking to herself, or, talking to herself, and meaning that, she's trying to talk to women now who are getting married, and she's like, in a way trying to fix her own mistake. If he's protected too, he can't complain, because someday all of you fun, fearless women will invent something, or write something, or build something, or sing something, or paint something, or design something, or act in something, or start a company that makes you a lot of money, and there's no reason on this earth why you should be penalized for your success by having to support an ex-husband. Right back to the gendered. Think of me, and what about the lesbians, Think of me as a cautionary tale. If I've convinced even one of you to get a prenup, I'll feel less angry on the first day of the next month when I have to write that goddamn mother-ing check yet again. What we already saw in the IMBD. So, I think Bill Burr is completely right. She could have really made a great case, because not that I've even really seen many men talk about alimony, but it would have been really interesting if she had gone on and said that. Because I do kind of agree. Like, unless someone's being the stay-at-home parent, I don't really think they deserve alimony. Because you do kind of get shafted by being a stay-at-home parent, because you're not building your marketable skills. You're kind of just taking care of the family, which I think deserves compensation through alimony if there is a divorce. Except I guess in that case they just call that child support, but I think those should be two separate things. Okay. Back to the video.
I'm not, as a man, I'm not driving down the street.
I don't agree.
My wife bought this for me. Auga!
I don't agree with that part of it, but I agree with everything else you said. And what's interesting to me is what separates us from the other guy, because we get worked up about it. That's the difference. You and I read that kind of article and go, a point needs to be proven. I need to walk across the room to the person I live with and prove that this is wrong, and we can't let it go. Whereas a million other people would just...
100% agree with me, then
Yeah.
I can't let it go.
Yeah.
Dude, it turned it. We were at the airport, and we debated it the entire way from the airport. It's like an hour and a half fucking drive all the way to right to when we went to bed. And then she finally understood what I was saying, and then she agreed with me. And I probably said it was a combination of me not making my point clearly, and all of the shit that I've said through the all the years of knowing her was already. I mean, she already has a preconceived notion of who I am, as I do her.
Right.
And I know what sets her off, and that type of thing. But like getting back to that point, dude, you are like not accepting a car from Oprah if you were married to her. There's no fucking way I could do that. I'd have to pull my own weight for the simple fact, because basically as a guy, like your job is to provide. So if you're with a woman and they have the kids, they can have the kid. I mean, you're there for the first You're there for the opening 5 minutes of the movie, and then they bring the whole thing home. That's
Yeah.
what they can do.
Right.
Do most of people agree with this? I feel like I would be fine letting my wife spend money on me. I don't really care about cars though. But in terms of clothes, I said the thing about the suit. Or you wouldn't like that, but I don't know. In terms of like a nice suit would really feel good.
Right.
All right.
I would let my wife buy me a nice suit.
And so your job is you can provide. If they're making more money than you, they're like a self-contained unit. They're providing for themselves and they're having kids. So at that point, you're like a teenager. You're just like this 45-year-old teenager, and she comes home and buys me a fucking car. Like, I'm not saying that I couldn't handle being with a woman who was making more money than me, but it's like, you're not going to go out and buy me a bunch of nice shit. And I'm like fucking like, some.
But I think that would be that's such a weird thing because, I mean, Bill Burr is definitely loaded. But Oprah, I think she's a billionaire. Yeah, like, she could throw away more money than you can make in your life. So, the things that she could buy on a whim for you that would be major purchases for you, there's just no way she wouldn't end up just buying you stuff that's like really nice. But some people want to be self-sufficient, and I appreciate that. I think I would be somewhat the same, but the Oprah situation, I just don't know. Got $2.5 billion.
Some evening gown, like laying on my stomach on a fucking piano.
Now
Diamonds, singing "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend."
Now here's
like some kept woman. Fuck that.
Here's the funny thing.
I don't think women should do that either. But like,
I disagree with what you're saying right now.
Because you're a mooch.
And it relates to what we're talking about, because why is there a thing in me where I can't just go, it's Bill's opinion, I don't care, I don't agree with it. I'm sitting here right now going, no, he's
I
wrong.
don't want you to
He's
agree with
wrong.
it. I want to hear your opinion. What do you have?
No. And
You don't have to yell. I'm right across this little table.
It depends on the dynamic of the relationship. Sure, if there's, I believe it should be a team and it should function like a team. So if your wife is going to have kids and she's going to be the person there raising the kids, nurturing the kids, and all that stuff, then yeah, go out and be the guy bringing home the bread, make her life easier, and it's a team at that point. If you're just two people that aren't having kids, and she gets a little more successful than you do, and she wants to throw you a car, yeah, that's part of the equality of the sexes. It's like it's got to be all or
it's not
nothing.
a part of the equality. It has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with me as a human being. Like,
Yeah, Bill Burr, he always makes this big prescription. He's just talking about himself.
I don't want to be like if I have a car, I want to be like, I paid for this thing.
Of course.
This is my, like, I bought this thing. I want to be pulling my weight.
We all want to, but I think that's more about like, if I bought you a car, you'd be like, get this car out of here as your friend. I don't think it's a matter of my wife and I'm not a man. I think it's a matter of, I just don't feel right driving a car.
Dude, just like if you have like a fucking suit and you look great in it and your wife bought you your whole fucking wardrobe. I mean, at that point, I might as well put some heels on and just be some floozy walking down the street.
I would definitely.
Why do you work so much? How come we can't go to the movies? I mean, I would, the amount of wood that I would have to chop to just try and still feel like a fucking man. And I wish there was a woman right
that's
here.
your fear. I think that's your fear thing.
Where they would sit there and go like, well, this is a sexist thing where you like don't feel that a woman should make more money than you. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if I was with a woman that was making more money than me, she's already bought the giant fucking house. There's no way you're buying me all this other shit. Like, I'll pay for the NFL Network. I have to bring something to the fucking table. I actually think that that's a good quality I have. Where there's a bunch of people out there who don't share my genitalia that would have no problem sitting in the house like a fucking house cat, laying in the goddamn sun as I'm out there slaving away.
But let's
No, but at the end of the day, the thing that she can do is she can actually, you know, I can't even say they make a baby. She can sit there and tough it out. As
oh boy,
as much they're not doing it. That's the thing. It's not like
All
you're
right.
making a pie.
But I
you
think
sit there, you get banged, and then let me
Jesus.
explain what happens. And then what happens is my stuff swims up the river there, hopefully gets through before the dam closes. It's like an action movie. That one person who rolls underneath and then everybody else is on the other side. Open it up, open it up.
I think this goes back
That's
to
the
your
first
fear
10
thing.
pages. That's the first 10 pages of your script, Joe.
That's script writing
Yeah.
101. I think this goes back to your fear thing. And Bill, fear leads
I
to
think it goes
hate.
back to your ass.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. You know that?
Hey, Joe.
That's from
Can't-
Star Wars.
I'll tell you this right now, Joe. Can't lives on Won't Street.
All right, fellas. Failers, I'm Audi 500. Gonna continue working on projects, streaming every Thursday. I'm not exactly sure what time I really want to settle on. I'm thinking 7, but I think I worked out the noise. Hopefully the computer fan wasn't too loud. We'll see what happens in post. Peace.